We will just be.
And we are live today with Georgina. How are you? She is from Singapore. And I know, isn't that cool? I have a friend in Singapore. Did you guys know that? Okay, just saying. Okay, so let me introduce myself for those who don't know. I am Rebbetzin Bat-Chen Grossman, and I am a marriage coach. I help women who are more successful than their husbands bring peace into their home by sort of creating that alignment and getting the support they need in order to fuel them to continue succeeding and to move even further. And Georgina is, you know what? You tell everyone why you're so awesome and what you do, because I love the way you describe it.
Thank you. Okay. So I'm a mindset and well-being coach, and I help individuals, high achievers, balance outer success and inner peace. Yeah. So I work with people all across the globe, from Australia to Mexico to Europe, and I'm very happy to be here with you.
Oh my gosh, this is so fun. Okay, you guys, we just met last week and we had this amazing discussion back and forth. And then we ended up having a Zoom call. It was just so much fun. And it was all about how we're both fascinated with the duality of the world and like the dichotomy of what's happening with male and female and light and dark and head and heart and outer and inner and spiritual and physical. And it's like, woo! So we're like, we have to talk about this. And of course, I always bring marriage into it because this is a show about everything that affects marriage. And of course, your outer success and the stressors and everything that's going on outside in the world and your inner peace is definitely affecting your marriage. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. So, Georgina, you want to start us off a little bit on that topic?
Oh, okay. Right. Let me just pluck something out of the air, Bat-Chen. Polarity. Polarity is a big one. This is good. That is bad. I am right. You are wrong. That's all about duality and polarity. Want to discuss that?
Yeah. So I actually think that one of the things in the mindset shift world is, sort of like getting out of that good, bad, win, lose, and finding win-win and finding how we're both human, in marriage, especially. You're like, he's the bad one. That makes me the good one. And we're all happy, It's sort of like it works for everyone but him. And of course, you're miserable because you want your husband to be happy also and to be a winner also. It's not like it makes you feel better, but it's a survival mechanism, sort of like a protective thing that we have, that if I'm right, then, it's okay. But it's not actually okay. It makes you feel resentful and icky and ugh. So one of the things I love about the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People that he writes in his book, that the goal is to get to a win-win. How do we become equals? And then we can actually talk and communicate and have one of the, a really human discussion about what's going on. Hi, Lilach is here. That's so fun. Hi, Lilach. So yeah. So, also with marriage and the man and the woman, there's like, if he's on top, then she's feeling controlled and she's feeling the bottom and a victim and whatever. If he's on the bottom, then he's feeling, inadequate and not really good enough. And so she's looking down at him for not being enough. And she thinks whatever, like it's always going to be bad. Anytime you don't have that equilibrium thing where you both are human and you're both going to make mistakes and you're both, have your inner worlds and you're both going through stuff and inner conflicts and whatever, like it's just life. And if you could see that and really look into each other's eyes and say, like, how do we work together? That's when magic happens. But if you're here or there, you're really not in a good place.
I agree. The whole thing is about equilibrium and balance.
Yeah. And you reach that by finding win-wins.
Yeah.
And that really almost takes away that, like the polarity thing that you're talking about, that we're so used to using because it's so ingrained.
Absolutely. very ingrained for me. I'm a Gemini, so everything is about polar opposites with me.
And on the other hand, I think that God created the world with opposites, for a reason, because we need that. We need to be able to see things from different perspectives. My father once was giving a whole class to couples, and he said, imagine there's a ball in the middle, and there's the man looking from here and the woman looking from here. And he's telling her what's on this side of the ball that she can't see. And she's telling him what's on this side of the ball. And now they can both understand the whole circle. But if they just like, oh, what do you mean? It's white. No, it's not. It's green. What? It's white. It's green. It's white. It's green. Of course, it's white and green. But like, they can't know that if they don't communicate properly. There is something really beautiful about having those opposites and being able to use it for you and not against you. And that's the game here, is really finding the tools that work, because not everything is going to work for everybody.
Surprise. I think from that example, what's really interesting is that they were both right. It just depended on their relevant perception, right? So everything is subjective. You can both be subjectively right in one argument. How about that?
I know, right? And we don't want to face that when we're in that lower consciousness level of like, no, I just need to be right. And, blame, shame, victim, like that lower level of consciousness that we all have been in, and we know exactly what it feels like. It's so difficult to get out of that, unless you choose to move on. And if you can get to a place where you're like, okay, higher consciousness, I can understand there's more than me. There's something bigger. I could try to learn, try to understand, like discover, basically the discovery process of just, instead of getting to the point, sort of just being open to hearing what's happening around me. Oh my gosh, that is the thing that's going to change your life is the ability to do that.
One of the key things that I'm focusing on this year for one of my own goals is to be open up to being wrong. To be open to being wrong, right? And so that to me is the two extremes of letting go completely and being in control. Having that balance where I feel safe enough to let go and be wrong and be open. But that's had me look into my boundaries. That's had me look into my own perception, my own judgments. It's Pandora's box.
Oh my gosh, just being wrong. Come on. First of all, I'm never wrong. So that's not even an issue for me. Just kidding. It's such a huge thing. Just, that what you said about creating the safety to being wrong, because a lot of times what we do is we feel so unsafe in our intimate relationships, even just husband and wife. If you can't be yourself and you feel like you're holding back your authenticity because it's not safe for you to be yourself, then you're really going to lose out, and they're going to lose out, and everybody loses out. And Brené Brown has this whole book about authenticity and how vulnerability is number one, being able to open up first and saying, I am willing to get hurt, but this is more important for me. This relationship is more important than my protection and my armor. Oh my gosh, that is just incredible. The weight that holds, the ability to create space. And you know what? Sometimes we have to create it ourselves, because it's not going to feel safe at first. And we're going to have to be the ones to be the first ones to take that leap. And it's scary, but that's why it's worth it.
You're reading my mind, Bat-Chen. Seriously, my mind just went to Brené Brown, because talking about communications with our partners. So my husband, if I do anything where I feel monstrous, I feel really bad about myself. So I've gone and I've shouted at the children, and I have not operated from my sage higher self. I've come in from sort of survival brain. Rah, I'm the naggy mum, and I will go in, and the first thing I will do is I will tell my husband, about how monstrous I am, and I will reveal all my shame. Maybe part of me thinking, well, he'll hate me for this, but doing it anyway and wondering what would happen, what the repercussion was. But Brené Brown, it really shone a light on how that's actually a really healthy thing to do, that how we are stronger by being more vulnerable. And so I think this has been something that I've subconsciously been doing all of these years, just by showing myself at my worst and being loved anyway.
Yeah.
Unconditionally, know.
And that's really cool. Touched on something so big, the unconditional thing, the the belief that we have, and I think it comes from the way that we're taught in society and just the culture, whatever, that we need to do something in order to be worthy of love, worthy of, anything, it's like, I don't even want to ask because I don't deserve it, and it's like, no, you deserve love. You deserve everything. It's like, it's so huge what you just said, like that belief that I'm going to tell, exactly what happened and how ashamed I feel, and how I know it's the wrong thing to do and I did it anyway and I just feel so icky, and help me out here. And then he can come from a place of, oh, you're right, I see that you feel bad about it. If you come and say, well, you know what, I was right, they deserved it, I should have screamed at them because they were bad kids and blah blah blah. So he doesn't see that you're feeling bad about it right away. What is he going to do? Be like, yeah, but maybe you should rethink about this. Like, you were a little wrong. So I'm giving him the opportunity to just see that it's safe for him to just let it go, because I got the lesson. Like, I learned my thing, I've processed it enough that he doesn't have to also be, hard on me. Like, I am hard on him.
There you go. That's the duality, the judgment. We're often harder on ourselves than we are with other people. I think if we see ourselves through other people's eyes, we would be so much more compassionate. But there you go. It's this is right, this is wrong. You are good, you are bad. I like this, I alienate this. These emotions are good, these emotions should be suppressed. I am a good mom, I am an awful mom. I'm a good wife, I am awful. It's all of these things ping-ponging around in our brain. Welcome to the human condition.
And it's exactly what you said. It's the judgment, because, all it is you're judging it. Like, you are a mom, period. That's it. You just are, I am. Just stop at that. Take a deep breath and be like, oh my gosh, that is just so huge.
I will if you will.
Oh, it feels so good. You should all do this. Put your hand on your, on your chest where you say, I am, and take a deep breath and just feel that, because you don't have to judge. You just are. You're here. That's good enough. You woke up this morning. Isn't it amazing?
Yeah.
Such a gift.
I think one of the things that I keep reminding myself is I am doing my best and I am learning from everything. Yes. And that intention is pretty cool.
Yeah. Like, to continue with the duality thing, one of the things that fascinate me so much is, the dark and light, where if we only had light, it wouldn't be bright. Like, what's the point? Somebody said, what's the point of holding a candle to the sun? The candle will only be shining and giving light when it's in the dark. So sometimes you need that darkness to find that little light, and then you can, go from there. And so that brings us back to that compliment of, like, even though there are opposites, you need them both in order to really work together.
I don't think you can have one without the other. They just can't exist, because one creates the other. You can't have dark without light. You can't have on without off, up without down. They simply could not exist separately.
Yeah,
which is it kind of wraps it all up into that whole, we have all of these polar opposites within us, but it is already a balance. We just kind of are all working towards that bit in between, which recognizes it's one whole. It's like two parts of the same coin, same thing. Or that bowl that's being looked at in two ways. It's the same bowl. We are that same thing.
And they're dependent on each other, which is so beautiful. Because then when you can see that, then you can accept it and not fight it. As I feel like one of the things that I waste the most energy on is fighting reality, is just being like, it's not supposed to be this way. It's not supposed to be this way. And when I could just let go and say, it is what it is. Like, this is reality. This is what is right now. And from there, what do I do with it? So I'm switching it to, I'm using it as fuel to move me forward, and not to get me stuck on, like, obsessing over how this is not supposed to be. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Oh,
I lost you there for a second, Bat-Chen. I'm back.
Good. Yay.
Sorry, you're saying about how exhausting it is to swim against the tide of reality.
Exhausting. That is the word. Yes. Because you're using up all of your energy on that. And you're obsessing over something that you can't change, you can't control, you can't do anything about. You just need to let it be. And when you let it be, then suddenly you could see, what can I learn from this? What can I do with this? Let's move on. Let's move forward. You know, it's such a huge thing.
The key word being in there is I. What can I learn from this? What can I do about this? Because expecting the world to change ain't going to happen. When we change ourselves, the world changes, because everything is how we perceive it, right? Try waking up on the wrong side of the bed, for example.
Yes. And I think that's one of the things that I love about the women I work with is they're not expecting to change and, oh, that's it. Magically, my life is perfect. I want to know what to do when I wake up on the wrong side of the bed. I want to know how to catch myself before I'm triggered and go on to this whole, cycle of 2 days not talking to my husband. I want to know what to do in order to prevent myself from being reactive. And those are amazing things because it shows that they're able to already get on that level of understanding that they just need to take care of their selves. And they're not always going to be at their highest and at their best. And what do I do when I'm not at my best? How do I pinpoint it, realize right away, do something about it, and prepare for it? It really, so powerful. So powerful.
I commend all of the women who are on that journey. It's life-changing, not just for you, but for everyone around you.
Oh, for sure. Like that's why I'm like loving this so much is I just get to watch how amazing they are and how the potential that they didn't believe they had within them. And they finally were like willing to admit that maybe it's possible. And then they committed to it and suddenly it is possible. And suddenly it's actually their reality. Oh my gosh. It's like mind blowing. It just feels so good.
It's incredibly gratifying. It's incredibly gratifying. I also work with a lot of clients to stop them being triggered when they're in their survival mode, and everything is fear-based and reactive and responsive, to sort of stepping into a much more resourceful, creative space in the moment and just being aware of everything as it arises and not getting engaged and not stepping into all the narrative about, well, he said or she said or I am, just stepping away and noticing it happen and then going, okay, yeah, it's really powerful stuff.
Yes, totally. Okay. If anybody who's watching has any questions, feel free to write them in the chat or in the comments or whatever you have there, because some of you are on YouTube, some of you are on Facebook. So please feel free to send us questions and comments. You wanted to talk about male-female a little bit. I remember when we were talking last time. What did you want to ask?
So I was on a flight from LA to Boston one time with this rabbi who was teaching at Harvard on female power and the Kabbalah. And I didn't get to hear, our conversation ranged on many, many different things, but I never got to hear more about that. And it's stuck in my mind like 15 years later. And I'm like, oh, I wish I'd asked. I wish I'd found out. So anything that you can add on that, I'd be really, really interested.
Yes. And, Lilach says flight convos are the best. Yes, they are. You're stuck in a flight together with people and that's exactly that duality of like, you could be so different and be stuck on a flight and just be human about it and have a conversation that leads to such awesome things. Really.
If I'm going to be brutally honest, I just gotten off a 16-hour flight from Singapore. I was sitting next to him. I had a Bloody Mary in front of me. He was taking a sleeping pill, and he goes, "You want one?" I said, "Sure. I've got to trust a rabbi." And I took it, and he said, "Maybe you shouldn't be drinking that with, Bloody Mary." 5 minutes later, so it seemed, I wake up at the other end and I've got drool, sticking up to my chin. And I'm like, oh, I wish I'd had that conversation. But I really needed that sleep. But yes, flight conversations are the best. Yes. I wish I was awake for more of it.
I love flights. So male and female is really fascinating because the male is very practical, very linear. And also their cycles are 24 hours. So that's why the schedules for businesses are so the same every day. You know, like you have these hours to this hours, and like those are the hours that they're the most productive. So they know that these are the hours they're going to be working. Not necessarily for women, right? We're cyclical and 28-day cycle. So you have days where you're in the mood to work and days where you're not in the mood to work and days where you need to rest. And we need to take those into consideration. So one of the people I love to listen to is Kate Northrup, because she has a whole book, Do Less, about how if you can get in touch with your cycle and the places in your month when you're super productive, and then times in your month when you really need to take it easy, then you're going to get a lot more done by doing less, because you're not fighting your body. And so I love that. But that's total side note. So men are very practical, very linear, very predictable. And they're always looking for like, what do we need to do? How do we get there? Very, brain, logical. And female are completely different. I don't have to tell you. We are intuitive. We are completely not linear. Like we can go like this to the same point, but we get so much out of it because we get the whole journey and we get the whole discovery period. Like we are just so, that is our superpower, is being able to really take it as it comes. And also our goal isn't as much, what do I need to do to get there? Is more like, how will this happen? And allowing it to be. That's one of those things that's really amazing, is like you sort of are letting go of the control and seeing what will be. But like you're very focused, this is where we're going and you're working towards it, but not from a place of like, I need to make this work and I need to get to the result, but more like, in a flow. When you're really in touch with yourself is one of the most amazing things. It's like a real superpower. And who talks about this? There's a woman, Gina DeVee. She just started a podcast. She's amazing. She has a book called The Audacity to Be Queen. And she talks about, just being willing to own your female powers and not push yourself to be like a man. And something that we've been doing for a long time in collective womanism is, if you want to succeed, you need to be like them. You need to dress like them. You need to push like them. You need to, get to their level and break those ceilings. Like we're trying so hard to be like something else that isn't us, that we're losing our own intuition. We're losing our own inner voice. We're losing our own authenticity, and we're losing our superpowers, which are the intuition and the ability to receive. Because when you look at in a physical way, the man is the giver and the woman is the receiver. And then the woman can develop what she receives into the baby. Yep. So we have that also in all of the other aspects. Like men are very give, provide, protect. That's their goal in life. That's also why, by the way, in marriage, the way that he measures his success is by how happy she is. Because it has nothing to do with how much money he's making, how many buildings he owns, how much, I don't know what, right? All of his outer success isn't as important as his wife's level of happiness. And so if he comes home and she says, you're not enough, then he's not enough no matter how much he owns. And he will feel like a failure in his own eyes because he was not able to provide and protect. And if he comes home and has nothing, he's a total loser. But he comes home and she says, I am so glad that you're my husband. I couldn't have asked for anybody better. You are just such a provider. You go out, you bring home whatever you can. Like, so, blah, blah, blah. Like she really is able to be in that place of being happy with what she has. And also just, finding her own happiness and taking responsibility so that she's not dependent on him. She's creating that, that fill for him to feel good about himself. So he is measuring his success according to her happiness. So it's one of those really amazing things. Don't take this wrong. Like if you're not happy, like don't be like, it's your fault I'm not happy. It's your responsibility to be happy. But just your superpower then is to give him credit. And that's just like easy. You could say like, Thank you for supporting me so I can do my purpose. Thank you for being so supportive. Thank you for being so, and he's like, I did nothing. I sometimes tell my husband, I'm like, I can only do what I do because of you. Thank you so much. And he's like, I don't know what I did, but okay. I'm like, what do you mean what you did? While I was on the live, you take care of the kids, or you made supper tonight, or I don't know what. Like, I come up with things because I want to give him, like, that's my gift to him, is my ability to receive his support and his love. So yeah, go ahead.
I would say that goes both ways as well, because we all have a fundamental need to be acknowledged as being enough. And it's our greatest fear. I think all of us deep inside, we're not enough. And there's doesn't matter if you're male or female, right? And so taking the time to acknowledge your partner and to be acknowledged is fundamental. But I'm curious, Bat-Chen, with the whole male and female, are you meant to have both in you, or as a female, do you just embody the female energy and the male just embodies the male?
No, I think that we both have both, but we're very, but we have the stronger ones within us. I think that as a rule, I mean, you just, you're naturally one or the other, I think, even though you have both. Like, you have the ability to tap into your logical brain and think clearly and, be very goal oriented. The question is, are you going against your nature or with your nature? Because at a certain point, you're going to start wearing off. Like, you're going to start running out of steam if this isn't your nature.
Okay, that's interesting. Because if I look internally, that's part of my duality. I definitely have male aspects to me, needing to prove, being successful, always winning, highly competitive, structured, process, methodical. And then the other half, which is just happy, stick me on a beach somewhere, happily pregnant, very, very sort of in touch. And I would say the male side has come out of a survival instinct and fear-based instinct.
Yeah.
And part of my female is trusting to receive. There's that word, trust, again.
Yeah. Yeah. And we all have that, the fear will push us to do things that we're not aligned with, are not with our integrity. And so we're capable of doing them. The question is, how sustainable is it? Because if it's not, if it's not what you're meant for, if it's not what you're here for, so you're going to have a much harder time doing that, like leaning into that purpose for a long period of time. Like, you'll be able to do it, for like bursts of time. And then you're going to have that cyclical thing where it's like, okay, now I need to take a break. Okay, now I'm going back to it. So that's why when women are running a business, they have to be really in touch with that cyclical thing of like, right now I'm launching, I'm really excited, I'm putting all my energy in there, I'm like 100% go, go, go. But I know it's going to end, and I know I'm going to take a break, and I know I'm going to have that low where I just, do my thing and go with the flow and have my rhythm. And then I'm going to have that up again. So when I know it's coming, I'm not upset or disappointed or frustrated or trying to, reverse engineer how I'm going to make sure that I stay consistent, because it's not my nature. It's not how I'm supposed to be.
Yeah. I really do that. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that is really, really amazing. Also, I think men have the ability to be intuitive and to get, to those places also, but to them, it's going to be also like not their go-to, we all have everything within us. I think that's one of those duality things. Like you were saying, I have those inner conflicts all the time where I want this, but I want that. I want that, So we're a whole world within ourselves. It's so fascinating. Oh, it's so fun. Such a fun conversation.
It is. The whole world within ourselves. I love that.
Yeah, we are a whole world. And, that's one of the things that, like, when you save, we have a saying in Hebrew that when you save a person, it's like saving a whole world. And that's why you're allowed to do anything. You're allowed to go against Sabbath, for example, in order to save a life, because the life is more important. You're not going to say, oh, I'm sorry, I can't drive today, so I'm not going to drive the ambulance. Like, you're not allowed to do that. You have to go drive the ambulance, stick that person, bring them to the hospital. You have a responsibility for that life. And why? And they say, because every life is like the whole world. You know, one person is the whole world. And it's just so beautiful. And I remember my mother always saying, you know, she said, oh, I have 4 kids. And people with more kids would look at her and be like, oh, only? It's like, excuse me, that's 4 worlds. You know, it's like humongous. I think that is it taught us as kids, like it really left an impression on me that it's not that it's about numbers, it's about each person counts. And by the way, that's one of the things that I'm trying to get in touch with now. I'm sort of becoming more present with it. I'm launching a retreat. And it's a free retreat. You're coming. I know. I'm very excited. I'll give you guys the link so you guys can all join. It's going to be a 7-day retreat. And I'm working really hard to make it absolutely phenomenal. It's going to be a 1 hour a day for 7 days. And I'm going to be really teaching about marriage and business and how to put them together and how to use your marriage to fuel your business and how to get the support that you need and the help that you crave so that you can really fly and move forward in your business. So we're going to be talking a lot about that. And how did I get to that? Oh, because so you know, in the beginning, the first day I launched it, like I opened up the doors to register. I was so excited. You know, it's this free retreat. You start getting people in and it's like, oh, look, today we got 12 people. And the next day it's like, oh, look, today we got 10 people. And, you know, you get all excited about the numbers. And when I started connecting to them one by one, I welcome them when they join the Facebook group. And I'm really happy to meet them and get to know them, because that's the whole point, is I love people. So I really am doing this to change to create peace in their home. And so I want to get to know as much as I can about their issues so that I can address it. And so I have these back and forth conversations. And after the first week of stressing over the numbers, I was like, forget it. I'm not checking numbers anymore. I'm just excited to meet people. I'm excited to see their needs and to hear more about what they're looking for, because that's what I'm here for. I'm here to serve. And so I totally changed my entire mind about how I was doing it. And it made me so much happier. Like, you don't know, I went from, being all like, I don't know, is like this amount enough? Do I need to more? Blah, blah, blah. Like numbers, to like, yeah. I care about the numbers. I'm not checking. I don't even know. I have no idea how many there are, but I'm so excited about each one that joins, because I get a ding about, somebody wants to join the Facebook group, and I welcome them and I friend them and I want to hear more about them. And it feels so good. It fills me up. Oh, that is totally off topic, but totally on topic, because I like bringing my own life in as examples. I think that's one of my superpowers is just being really real. Yeah. So that's what I'm going through now, and I'm really excited. So you guys go and check out ConnectedForReal.com/retreat, and it's happening in 2 weeks, so you better sign up. Also, I'm doing these really cool special hot topic bonuses for the people who sign up early. And we did parenting and marriage last week. And this week we're going to actually address. Oh, yes. I could give a whole year on parenting and marriage. Yeah. But it was a really good one, because we addressed the most important mindset shifts on that video. I think you'll really enjoy it. Now you have homework.
Where is it?
What? It's on the YouTube channel. What?
Are there any spoilers you're allowed to tell us?
Spoilers. I think that, children are geniuses. Like, you don't have to fake it. You don't have to, pretend that you're on the same wavelength with your husband when you're not. Like, if you don't let candy and he does, and you fight with him all day that like he's going against your will, and how could you give them candy behind my back, blah, blah, blah. It's like, they know what's going on. So just like, be like, let's respect each other. I don't like candy. He lets candy. Yes, children are geniuses. I love that. My sister just commented. If we can respect each other and say, please don't eat the candy around me, or, please let's, just give them candy when, it's specific times that I let's communicate about this so that it doesn't become between me and you. And it just becomes, the rule of the house sort of thing. Like, sometimes my husband will get really annoyed when he comes home and the house is a mess. So I'll tell the kids, like, I honestly probably don't care as much about having toys on the floor, whatever. Like, I like clean, but it's kids, they're having a full day in the house with the corona thing and the pandemic, and they haven't gone to school forever. Like, they're taking out toys all the time. And so it doesn't bother me as much, but I tell them before my husband comes home, let's clean up 15 minutes. Let's just pick things up so that we can welcome him. So do they think like I'm faking it? No, I'm telling them straight out, we're doing it for him. And that's such a respectful thing. I'm teaching them that sometimes you do something for someone else when it doesn't matter to you. When it's not
have one family rule in our house up on the fridge, and it's the root of absolutely everything, and that's be considerate.
Yeah. And I mean, another spoiler is that you want to teach your kids how to be adults and not how to be kids. Because education is not, let me teach you how to be a good kid. It's, let me teach you how to be a good adult. And so that means, let me teach you that life doesn't actually stop being life the second you grow up. One of the things that kids think is like, oh yeah, one day I'm going to get out of here and I'm not going to have to do anything I don't want to do. It's like, right. You see how that works for you. Because it's not true. Life is going to be challenging. Life is going to be full of surprises and things that are going to come up, and you're going to have to deal with them. And so let me teach you how to deal with things you don't like to do, how to deal with things that you don't expect, how to deal with things that you don't like, how to deal with reality. And that's our job as parents.
Well, there's the duality in that as well, because the kids help us become children again. And there are a lot of benefits in that. To laugh more freely, to get on the floor and to be mindful with toys and to just lose ourselves in the moment. That it goes both ways. But having said that, I would say there's an age limit, because, it's not until they're about 12 years old that they start to be able to discern. So at the same time, we can prepare them, but there are boundaries there, safety and security boundaries.
Sure.
Yeah, it is about them being kids, but giving them the security to be responsible, and to make their own mistakes, and to be.
Sometimes it's not about our expectation of them, but just ourselves modeling something. So I'm modeling that, this is important to me, even though it's not important to me, because it's important to him. So they can pick that up, even a very young age. They can understand that, oh, okay, there's peace here. They
don't do what you say, they do what they see you do.
Oh yeah. That's number one. I think my kids are the thing that keeps me the best. Like I will put down my phone because they remind me to, but I think if they weren't around, I would be a total zombie. It's like one of my biggest problems is my phone. Because when they were in school, it was much easier. During the time that they weren't in school, I was working and taking care of whatever, like WhatsApps and messages, whatever it was. And when they come home, I would put the phone to charge and I would just give them time and serve them food, whatever. I was like very present. But now there is no separation. It's all this mush of kids are everywhere all the time, and they're not going to sleep on time. They're not. It's just like, boom. So like that new situation created, first of all, that my kids think that I work all day because they never saw me working. Like, to them, I worked maybe 1 hour a day. Like, their whole chunk of the morning didn't exist. It's almost that, the kid that like falls asleep and says, I go to sleep and nothing happens until I wake up, and like, that's what they believe, because that's their life. Their life is, in this square of like, this is. So my daughter says, you work so much all the time, you're not with us. And it's like, yeah, I'm actually doing my job. I'm doing exactly what I was doing before, maybe even less, but now you see it.
Yeah.
So now it's a little bit more complicated. Like, they want me to take them to the park during work hours, so we do. I have like meetings at the park with my Zoom, like we do what we can, and we're having a good time with it, but it's definitely a new challenge that we're enjoying, quote unquote.
So here's something that I've always struggled with, is this idea of boundaries. So in my mind, I'm sort of earth mom. I've got this idea of my kids have, been a part of me for 9 months, and then they leave, and somehow my boundaries don't exist so much. We exist almost by osmosis. And for me to want to carve out me time is almost selfish,
Mm-hmm.
And I know that that's rubbish. I can look at that and go, what nonsense, slap upside my head, go for a walk, take some time out. Otherwise you're going to be a psycho. Off you go. But it's still that feeling inside of just wanting to be there. And the tendency to end up smothering instead of mothering is something that I have to constantly remind myself, I'm not being selfish. I'm not being selfish. And I've had to do a lot of work on my own limiting beliefs in that and start setting up the boundaries. So now my kids know they will try. They'll probably walk down the stairs and try to have this conversation with me while I'm in the middle of a call. But now they know because I've set boundaries and I've put consequences in. And then I will go and spend the time with them, like intentionally put my attention on them. But there's a duality between interdependent and separate. And I kind of think the whole thing is a bit of a myth anyway. This whole idea of being separate self is part of the problem. But it's essential.
Yeah. I think that's one of the things that women have such a hard time with receiving, because like we said before, that is our superpower, is to receive, but we are not trained to receive because everybody just tell you give, 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 give. And so how do you come to peace with receiving when it feels so foreign? We're not used to it. And the answer is because receiving is giving. If there was, just like we were talking about duality, if there is nobody to give to, so you can be rich and there's no charities around, you have nobody to give to. It feels so useless. What is the point of having all this money? What is the point of having all this stuff? If you don't have that, receiver, then there is no giver. And so by receiving, you're actually giving the giver the ability to give. And that's the biggest giving. And so that's a total mindset switch, because now instead of being like, oh, I'm the receiver and like, poor me, I don't know, he's probably like feeling so low about me. No, I am usually the higher one. The person who's receiving has this job of creating a pedestal for the other person, really holding them up. So that's an amazing thing. And in my intimacy masterclass, we go into that a lot because it has so much to do with it. The ability to receive is the ability to give.
When you said that, my grandmother had a quote about pedestals and it just popped into my head. You put someone on a pedestal and you discover their feet are made of clay. It's the same. We're all exactly the same. We've got clay feet.
That's funny.
So to me, it's about that equality.
Yeah, for sure.
Giving, receiving. And the interesting thing is I work a lot on receiving because often with coaching, the clients that you have are you and everything that you've gone through. You are your ideal client. I am my ideal client. So if receiving comes up in my coaching session, which it so frequently does, I know that there's a finger pointing in at me going, okay, I need to do some work receiving. So the way that I started is, go and write something, go and say nice things, do something that will attract a lot of compliments back at you, and then just do this mantra, just this affirmation. Somebody gives you a compliment, somebody offers you something, somebody does something for you. Don't say, oh yes, this old thing, or oh no, but just say, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Enough said. Thank you. And just that has opened up so much for people as the first step to start noticing every time they block receiving.
Who's really into that is Laura Doyle. She wrote a book called The Empowered Wife. And it's a very good book, by the way. If you guys want to transform your marriage, she went from almost getting divorced to completely being, in a different place with her marriage. Like, woof. And now she teaches other women how to coach. I don't know her personally, but I read her book and, it was funny. Somebody came and said, everything you teach lines up with this woman. You have to read her book. So I was like, okay. So I read her book and lo and behold, yes, everything I teach is in there. Like, it's funny, it like all aligns. The only things that are missing there for me are that she doesn't have kids. So I talk a lot about kids because I have 6. And also she doesn't bring God into it at all. So so that's something that was missing for me. But for most people, I think that that's a phenomenal book. If you wanted to go and read one book, go read that book, The Empowered Wife by Laura Doyle. And she talks a lot about the power of just saying thank you. Like, because when you reject the compliment, you are rejecting the person. Yeah. And you don't realize that you're doing it. Only they feel it. And so your husband brings you, flowers, or he brings you a gift and you're like, oh, this old thing, or this thing is ugly, or blah, 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 blah. And, he'll even say, oh, you're so beautiful. And you're like, oh, no way. I gained so much weight and blah, blah, blah. You start complaining and he feels like, oh, no point. There's no point of giving you anything. Like it's not even worth it. And so you're training him to stop, which is pretty much, us getting in our own way, because then you, what?
100%.
Yeah. Then you go complaining that your husband never gives you anything. He's like, yeah, he tried for the first 5 years. Then you trained him not to, and he gave up. Like, what do you think? He's going to try on forever? Like, he's a good learner. He's smart. He's picking up what you want, what you don't want, which is why it's so easy to bring it back, because you can retrain by changing what your reactions.
Yeah.
You can so easily change it all around. And people think it's going to take years and years. And then suddenly you like turn around and it's a couple of months later. And oh my gosh, my entire relationship has changed, because my relationship with myself changed. My ability to receive changed. My ability to take responsibility for my own happiness and not to wait for other people. And not my ability to dependent myself. Is that a word? De-dependent.
To separate myself.
Yeah, well, that's not as cool.
Oh, okay.
I'm kidding. Because we're like, so like, he doesn't make me happy. Well, yeah.
Take responsibility.
Who said that's how it works, And you're waiting for him to fill you up. It's never going to work, because you're not, it's a bottomless pit when we wait for other people to fill us. So it has to start with us. And that's, that's the secret of everything, by the way.
Yeah. So I've been doing this really interesting course, and it's called SRI. It's body work that you use to integrate your polarities. So one of the stages within it is all about creating unity and acceptance of our various polarities. So you start with breathing into the different parts of your body and naming the polarity. So sometimes I receive, sometimes I give, sometimes I'm angry, sometimes I'm loving, sometimes I'm patient, sometimes I'm not patient. And then you basically name all those bits that you dislike about yourself, that you've been shaming and repressing, because if somebody offers you something, you can't accept it because there's that block within you. And then at the end, what you do is you just visualize, imagine it's like you're sending your breath and your energy from one to the other, and then back up again. So imagine it's like paint. You've got red up here and yellow down there, and you're sending the red down to the yellow and the yellow up to the red. And, you end up with this orange, and creating this unity of these bits that you like or dislike, that you judge, that you and just creating one whole thing, which is really, really nice. That's how I internalize that.
That's really cool. I think it's just, it's so fascinating for me, because every time I come up with another polarity and another, duality, it's like the two sides of the brain. There's one of my friends who works with kids with autism. She like really makes them open up and close up, and just connect that out in out thing. It's just like there's so much that you can do to really create that oneness within you. It's just amazing. And, I'm a religious Jew, and I bring God into everything. And I feel like that is that oneness. God is one, and he created this world with all those polarities to teach us how to reunite, how to create that within ourselves, and then to find that inner peace that then will bring the outer peace. It's just all awesome. It's just so cool. It's so cool.
I think it's, all of us are striving for wholeness. We're striving to feel whole again.
Yes.
Not judged, feel loved, feel integrated, feel complete. Yeah. That's
the wholeness is just, that's one of the things about perfectionism. Perfectionism is that lie, or like the illusion of, oh, perfect is whole, but it's not actually. Wholeness is taking the that perfect and the imperfect and realizing that they're really one, and that they work together, and that's what's perfect. Brene Brown has that book, The Gift of Imperfection, and she talks about wholehearted people. And when I read that book, I made a video about it. It's a very cute, funny video. You could look on my YouTube channel. It's about, so I was thinking wholehearted, whole wheat. So what is whole wheat all about? And I started thinking about how in the beginning, everybody was eating whole wheat. And then, the rich people were like, wait, there's, the outer shell that's really just sort of garbage. And the inner shell is the perfect part. So let's separate, and just take the perfect. And so they were able to get the perfect piece, the perfect white flour to make the perfect white bread. And all the rich people had the perfect bread. Everybody else was eating garbage. And then, of course, with time, we're getting to the point where everybody's eating white flour and white bread, and everybody is eating perfect food. And then what happens? Like everybody goes, stop to a halt. It's not perfect. It's not digestible. It's having a terrible effect on all of us. What's going on? If this was the perfect bread, why isn't it perfect? And the answer is because you're missing the most important part, the imperfection, which is there to help you digest. So then when you take that to life, you're like, if I just perfect myself and try to release all of that imperfect to the point where I no longer have any shells and anything, and I am this like perfect person, quote unquote, then am I really going to be able to digest life if I had no challenges, if I had no darkness, if I had no ups and downs, if it was just all, life was perfect? You wouldn't be able to digest that. You wouldn't have the ability to really be a healthy person, And that was something totally, you just got like a preview.
I like that. And you couldn't grow just on the inside. You need that husk.
Yeah.
Just to survive. Yeah. I like that.
Okay. So Georgina, tell us where people can find you, how you want to, who you help. Tell the people.
Okay. All right. So I mainly help professionals, a lot of executives, but also people who are teachers. One of my clients owns a gym. These are all high achievers who are really, really self-aware, very, very smart, but they have a big inner critic, right? That tends to hobble them. And so a lot of the work that I do is really about stopping that judgment. It's about creating that awareness and allowing them to step back. It's also about understanding that that their triggers are also an opportunity to understand what programs they're running in the background and helping them align. So a lot of the work that I do is about internal alignment, because we often have internal agendas, push, pull. I want this, but secretly I want that, right? Things that are conscious and subconscious. So a lot of the work that I do is around duality to create balance. I'm really all about equilibrium so that you can have ongoing success while being present, while being open-hearted, while using all the faculties of your brain, right? I'm all about the right and the left hemisphere working together. I tend to combine a lot of, here goes my my Gemini sides, a lot of neuroscience and left brain stuff with the right brain visualization, NLP, or spiritual aspects. And I combine both as needed for my clients. And you can find me, my website's really easy if you have a look at my name. And there you go, add a .com at the end of it. I often invite people to reach out if you're curious, if you think I can help you, just contact me through my website. There's a little button there. You could book half an hour chat with me, or if you're willing to explore further and have a coaching session with me, book in a 90-minute chat, because I'm not going to tell you about the wonders of coaching. It's best just experienced. So if you fancy it, book in a 90-minute session with me, and I'm happy to help.
GeorginaHalabi.com. Go and do it, because it's totally worth it. Totally worth it. And if you guys are married and in business, you should definitely check out the retreat, ConnectedForReal.com/retreat. Oh, it's such a pleasure. I'm so happy we got to meet. I'm so happy we got to discuss this. And then we were like, we have to take this live. There is no way we could just keep this between ourselves. So if you like the conversation, make sure you send us a message. Tell us that you liked it. Ask any questions. We are here for you. And thank you so much. We will see you next week.
Bye, everyone.